Hello everyone, I am Kiran Joshi. Hope you all are safe and sound. This is the second video of Class 8 Civics chapter Confronting Marginalization. In the first video, we learned that marginalized have referred to the fundamental rights of the Constitution whenever they have experienced injustice done to them. We also learnt that government has made specific policies for the upliftment of marginalized such as free or subsidized hostels and reservation in government education and service. But merely making policies is not sufficient to bring them up to the same level as the rest of the society. So the government of India has made specific laws that guard against the discrimination and exploitation of marginalized communities. Through a case study based on a real life incident, let's try to understand how Dalits use the protection that laws provide to them. In Jakmalgarh village, the local deity is honored once in every 5 years. This is a 5-day event which is attended by the priests from 20 neighboring villages. It begins with a member of the Dalit community washing feet of all priests and then bathing in the water used for this. This task was performed by Rathnam's family, which belonged to the Dalit community. This time it was his turn to do this. Rathnam, who was a 20-year-old engineering student, refused to do or perform this ritual. He said that he did not believe in this ritual and that it was imposed on his family just because they were Dalits. His refusal angered not only the powerful caste in the village but the other members of his own community also. The powerful castes were shocked to see the courage of the boy. They blamed Rathnam's education and said that it made Rathnam dare to compare himself with them. The members of Rathnam's own caste were afraid that they might have to face the anger of the powerful castes in the form of not allowing them to work on their fields as daily wage workers. They were worried how would they earn and survive. They also had the fear that they would have to face the extreme anger of the local deity against which Rathnam argued that when no Dalit entered the temple, how could the deity be angry with them? In order to teach Rathnam a lesson, the powerful castes ordered the other members of Dalit community for a social boycott of Rathnam and his family. Not only this, his hut was set on fire one night. Rathnam managed to escape with his mother. Then he filed a case under the Scheduled Caste and the Scheduled Tribes Prevention of Atrocities Act 1989 in the local police station. However, he did not get support of his own community as they feared that the same incident might happen with them too. The local media showed interest in his case and many journalists started visiting the village to cover the news and Rathnam became a symbol of Dalit action. The ritual was cancelled, but Rathnam and his family had to leave the village as the powerful castes continued to boycott them. You must have noticed the mentioning of a law framed for Dalits, that is, the Scheduled Caste and the Scheduled Tribes Prevention of Atrocities Act 1989. Rathnam could file his complaint to protest against the domination and violence of the powerful castes with the support of the law, that is, SC/ST Act 1989. Children, this act came into being in 1989 when Dalits and other groups persistently demanded for laws against ill treatment and humiliation done to them. During the 1970s and 1980s, the ill treatment and humiliation towards Dalit and tribals and their confrontation with the powerful castes became the cause of frequent violent incidents. In southern India, many Dalit groups started speaking or giving voice for their rights. They refused to perform their so called caste duties, demanded equal treatment for themselves, and refused to follow those practices that were based on their humiliation and exploitation. Such resistance from Dalits enraged the powerful castes and caused violence against them. Then, in order to make the government realize that untouchability was still prevailing and being practiced in very disgusting and shocking ways, Dalit groups insisted on the formation of new laws. They demanded that such laws must include various ways of atrocities and violence against Dalits and lay down strict punishment for those who indulge in them. Simultaneously, during 1970s and 1980s, Adivasis also organized themselves to demand for equal rights and to get back their land and resources. Adivasis also had to face the anger of powerful social groups and a lot of violence occurred against them. Therefore, a long list of crimes, even the most horrible ones, are included in this act. The act also describes how horrifying and dreadful human activities can be towards other humans. Therefore, such laws not only aim to punish those who commit such crimes but also try to mold the way people think and act towards the marginalized. The Act defines and differentiates several levels of crimes. First, the various ways of humiliation are listed. The humiliation can be physically horrific and morally reprehensible. Children, morally reprehensible humiliation means a deed that goes against the values, decency, and dignity that a society believes in. The act states to punish those who force a member of scheduled caste or scheduled tribe to drink or eat that is not edible or that is unpleasant and harmful, or those who forcefully do such acts which are degrading to human dignity, such as to forcefully remove clothes from the person who belongs to scheduled caste or scheduled tribes, or to force him or her walk naked or with painted face or body, etc. Second level of crimes are those actions that force Dalits and Adivasis to give up whatever little resources they may have, or those actions that force them to perform slavery. Thus, we can say that the SC/ST Act 1989 directs to punish those who illegally take or cultivate the land of a member of SC or ST communities, or those who get the land allotted to any member of SC or ST community transferred to them. The Act at another level acknowledges that the crimes done against Dalit and tribal women are of specific kind, so it suggests to punish anyone who physically hurts or uses power on any women of scheduled caste or scheduled tribe with the intention to dishonor her. When the discussion is about atrocities, it becomes important to mention about one of the most demeaning and dehumanizing of activities, that is manual scavenging. Children, manual scavenging is the practice of removing animal or human waste or excreta using brooms, tin plates and baskets by people specially employed for the purpose, and the people who do this are called manual scavengers. Mostly Dalit women and young girls do this job. Andhra Pradesh based organization named Safai Karmchari Andolan that works with manual scavengers tells in its report that 13 lakh persons from Dalit community are employed in the country in this job, and they work in 96 lakh private or community dry latrines which are managed by municipalities. Let's talk about the problems that manual scavengers face. They work in subhuman and unhygienic conditions and are exposed to infections. That means they are more likely to get infection in their eyes, skin, respiratory system and gastrointestinal system. Moreover, they are poorly paid, as rupees 30 to 40 per day if working in urban municipality, and if they are privately employed then they are paid even less. Though the practice of untouchability has been abolished by the Indian Constitution, the manual scavengers in various parts of India are still considered as untouchables. Their settlements are away from the main settlement of the town or village, and they are not allowed entry in the temple or use public water facilities, etc. Children, here it is important to mention that in 1993 the Government of India passed the Employment of Manual Scavengers and Construction of Dry Latrines Prohibition Act. This act prohibited the use of manual scavengers, discontinued the use of dry latrines, and tried to regulate the construction and maintenance of water seal latrines. In 2003, the Safai Karmchari Andolan and 13 other organizations and individuals filed a PIL in the Supreme Court complaining that manual scavenging still continued in government undertakings like the Indian Railways and demanded for the enforcement of their fundamental rights. The court noticed that the number of manual scavengers in India had increased despite of the 1993 Act. And so the Supreme Court instructed every department or ministry of the central government and state governments to confirm the facts within 6 months. It also directed those departments where manual scavenging still existed to start a time-bound program to liberate and rehabilitate manual scavengers. The Prohibition of Employment as Manual Scavengers and their Rehabilitation Act came into effect on 6 December 2013. Let's come back to the 1989 Act. Adivasi activists used this act to defend their right for occupying the land that used to be theirs. They asked that the encroachers of their land should be punished. The activists also said that 1989 Act confirms the same which has been promised in the Constitution. That is, the tribal land can neither be sold to non-tribal people nor be bought by non-tribal people. And if there is any such case, the tribal people have the right to repossess their land. According to an Adivasi activist, C.K. Janu, the various state governments themselves are the violators of tribal people's right, because it is the state governments that allow the timber merchants or paper mills to exploit tribal land or force tribal people to leave their forests by declaring the forests as reserved forest or sanctuaries. She demanded that those tribal people who were compelled to leave their traditional land must be given compensation. She also tells that the government can compensate them by making proper plans and policies for tribal people to live and work somewhere else. She gives the argument that if the governments spend a huge amount of money on various projects on tribal land, they should not be unwilling to rehabilitate the displaced, that is Adivasis. In 2006, the central government passed the Scheduled Tribes and Other Traditional Forest Dwellers Recognition of Forest Rights Act. In the introduction of the act, it is said that the act would undo the injustices done to forest dwellers, and the injustices are that their right to land and resources are not recognized. Therefore, this act recognizes forest dwellers' right to homestead, cultivable and grazing land and also their right to non-timber forest produce. The Act also states that it is the right of the forest dwellers to conserve forest and biodiversity. So children, by now you must have understood that laws, policies or rights on paper alone are not enough. If the country has to progress and enjoy socio-economic development, the entire society has to understand collectively the practical need to continuously work towards equality in every sense. There should be a countrywide resolution to create awareness amongst all the people. Now let's check your understanding of the topic through these questions. First question, why did the government pass the Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribes Act 1989? Second question, what crimes have been dealt with by the SC and ST Prevention of Atrocities Act? Third question, what is manual scavenging? Describe various efforts made by the government to eradicate manual scavenging. Fourth question, what is the Scheduled Tribes and other traditional forest dwellers Recognition of Forest Rights Act about? Children, if you found this video helpful and wish to watch more of such content, do consider subscribing to the channel. And if you have any queries or comments, please post them in the comment section below. Thank you.